Hi there. This is a thought for the day to either begin your day or, come in the middle of the day, wherever you are, or to end your day. And today I'm reading from Spiritual Emergency. When personal transformation becomes a crisis. And this was put together by Stanislav Grof and his wife, Christina Grof. And we're going to talk about the ET UFO experience. And he begins. Of all the difficult questions asked by people who have been up close and personal with UFO, perhaps the most perplexing and the most common is, why me? This question runs throughout Whitley Strieber's best-selling account of his abduction experience, which he wrote about in Communion, the book Communion in 1987, and Bud Hopkins' Chronicle of the UFO abduction phenomena, which he wrote about in the book Intruders, also in 1987. Here, I am concerned with what people report about their experience, not about what is ultimately objectively true. The latter is a very different debate and one that would take me in a very different direction. My approach is phenomenological. I take as primary data that which is reported by the UFO perceiver as his or her experience. And I will leave it to others to draw inferences about the nature of reality. The intensity of the existential or transpersonal crisis that may be precipitated by a UFO experiencer does not appear to be dependent on whether the perceiver feels he or she has interacted with a traditional unidentified flying object. The experiential authenticity of a UFO experience seems largely to depend upon the extent to which the perceiver experiences the interaction with otherworldly beings, presences, or objects as significantly substantial and fundamentally real, even as more than real. Professor Arnold van Gennep has defined rites of passage as rites, quote, rites which accompany every change of place, state, social position, and age, end quote. Our movement from womb to tomb is punctuated by a number of critical transitions marked by appropriate rituals meant to make clear the significance of the individual and the group alike to all members of the community. Such ritualized passages include birth, puberty, marriage, and religious confirmation, including induction into mystery schools of various kinds. To which list I add a new category of experience, the UFO human encounter, an interaction that has many structural and functional likenesses to other initiation occasions. Looking at what I consider the central paradox of human-alien interaction, namely the continuing unsolvability of the UFO phenomena by conventional means and models, coupled with the continuing manifestation of the whole phenomena in increasingly bizarre forms, it's difficult to avoid the impression that the very tension of this paradox has had an initiatory impact. While the debate between true believers on both sides of the UFO question presses on, our personal and collective belief systems have been changing in ways that have been at once imperceptible and momentous. Without our notice, the human mythological structure has been undergoing a fundamental shift. Public opinion surveys and other measures of the collective pulse reveal that more people than ever now take for granted that we are not alone in the universe. The very unwillingness of the UFO phenomenon either to go away or to come considerably closer in a single step has been conditioning us, initiating us, if you will, to entertain extraordinary possibilities about who we are in our depths and what the defining conditions of the game we call reality might be. Van Gennep showed that all rites of transition are marked by 3 phases: separation, marginality, and aggregation. Phase 1, separation, involves the detachment of individuals and groups from an earlier fixed social position or set of cultural conditions, a detachment or departure from a previous state. For example, a young male who proceeds into a male initiatory ceremony in a traditional culture is forced to leave his self-identification as boy at the door of the initiation lodge. Phase 2, marginality, involves entering a state of living in the margins, like betwixt and between, not here and not quite there. Marginality is characterized by a profound sense of ambiguity about who one really is. So the young male is no longer a boy, but has not yet become, through specially designated ritual, a man. Aggregation, then, is a time of coming back together, but in a new way, moving out of the margins into a new state of being. This is the consummation or culmination of the whole process. Now the male has earned the right to be called and to consider himself a man. Joseph Campbell, easily the world's most creative and insightful mapper of mythological realms, has written a great deal about the many forms the separation phase might take. In his classic work on the universal myth of the hero's journey, The Hero with 1,000 Faces is the name of that work, Campbell writes, a hero ventures forth from the world of the common day into a region of supernatural wonder. He speaks further of this first phase of the journey as the call to adventure, signifying, quote, that destiny has summoned the hero and transferred his spiritual center of gravity from within the pale of his society. A pale is a fence or boundary. From within the boundary of his society to a zone unknown. This fateful region of both treasure and danger may be represented as a distant land, a forest, a kingdom underground, beneath the waves, above the sky, a secret island, lofty mountaintop, or a profound dream state. But it is always a place of strangely fluid and polymorphous beings, unimaginable torments, superhuman deeds, and impossible delights. The hero can go forth of his own volition to accomplish the adventure, as did Theseus when he arrived in his father's city, Athens, and heard the horrible story of the Minotaur, or he may be carried or sent abroad by some benign or malignant agent, as was Odysseus, driven about the Mediterranean by the winds of the angered god Poseidon. The adventure may begin as a mere blunder, as did that of the princess in the fairy tale The Frog Prince, or still again, one may be only casually strolling along when some passing phenomenon catches the wandering eye and lures one from the frequented paths of mankind. I've taken the liberty of quoting this passage at length because I find myself captivated by the many parallels between the heroes called to adventure in mythology and the numerous examples from UFO lore of individuals summoned from within the pale of society to a zone unknown. In any case, the hero is separated or detached from the collective, the mainstream, in a powerful and life-changing way. In terms of the UFO experience, the contactee or abductee concludes, often as a way to preserve his or her sanity, that it couldn't have been real. It didn't happen to me. It was only a dream. If I just keep the memory to myself, maybe it will just go away. Refusing the call, writes Campbell, represents the hero's hope that his or her present system of beliefs, virtues, goals, and advantages might be fixed and made secure through the act of denial. But no such luck is to be had. One is harassed both day and night by the divine being that is the image of the living self within the locked labyrinth of one's own disordered psyche. The ways to the gates have all been locked. There is no exit. End quote. The world's great religions and philosophic traditions speak in different ways about this crucial moment, which we may describe as wrestling with one's angel. This being or beings who guard the threshold admit of no detour. The way beyond is the way through. The numinous other, capital O, other, in any and all of its guises, frequently demands something that seems to the initiate unacceptable. Yet refusal seems impossible in this new and unfamiliar zone. The terror is often overwhelming, as Whitley Strieber writes in describing his UFO abduction, quote, Whitley ceased to exist. What was left was a body in a state of fear so great that it swept about me like a thick, suffocating curtain, turning paralysis into a condition that seemed close to death. I do not think that my ordinary humanity survived the transition. How graphic this description of being forcibly separated from one's deepest sense of self by an utterly alien agency and left hanging in the ambiguous margins of being. Strieber's experience is common to that of many, but not all, abductees. Might we be justified in suggesting that what is at stake in human-alien encounters is a certain concept of humanity? So that's our thought for the day. It's about contact. It's about being separated. It's about living in between, not having any resolution, not having any answers, having to look at an impossible or face an impossible scenario. And the only way is through. It's kind of like where we are right now. So take that as you walk through your day and make it a great day. Okay?